you
Oh yeah?
thing about this, because, I mean, if we're going to do this, then we should start now, right?
We need the very first one, the very first video.
Yeah. So what are we doing?
So we were talking about writing this book, and not to say that the book is this book is pretty still like in our mind, obviously. That's what we're doing right now. But we just started to think like, would it be more effective to make it as a movie, and not so much because you can reach more people with a movie, although that's true, but because the format of it would be to just have oriented and well thought out in advance discussion with a bunch of people, like smart people from the web industry, from the web world, whether it's a startup world or not, and we will try to go further in our thought of where the web is going. And we could, like I said, like we could look back what we've been doing for years, look at where we are right now with everybody's trying really hard right now, and I think if you find the right person and you manage to have this setup for the right discussion at the right time, you can get a lot of insight from that, and that would be extremely valuable for like basically everybody, like entrepreneur, designer, developers, bloggers, and it's a lot of fun to do. And I don't know, what do you think of it?
So interestingly enough, it was, came out of a discussion about the book, and me arguing that a lot of design decisions early in the days of Twitter tipped it from being like this conversation space where it's just people connecting to more of a celebrity sort of space and reflecting on things like Biz Stone being in a Stoli vodka ad and Dennis and Naveen, being on billboards in New York City, and feeling a lot sad about how the revolution has been televised in a way, how it has been co-opted or assimilated into mainstream culture, and how in the early days, and maybe I'm waxing too poetic about it, or maybe I'm too nostalgic about the early days, but in the early days, like, we were experimenting. We didn't know what we were doing. Web 2.0 had just been, we're a thing that was invented by O'Reilly for a conference, and even then we felt really uncomfortable with labeling anything, but it started to grow. We started to talk about it, and, we look back and everything was retrospective. Web 1.0 was about setting down, like, putting everything offline, online sort of thing, trying to recreate that space. But Web 2.0 was really actually uncovering a lot of the depth of what the web promise was, connecting people, human beings in this way. And that's why social networks and the social web was starting to become more and more significant. And this was exciting to us. And it was all about pushing the boundaries of that. And there was money. I mean, there's always been money. I was in San Francisco. There's always been money in that area to invest. And yeah, there was money, stupid money being invested at the time. But, there seemed to be less of this race to, 1 million, 10 million, 1 billion users sort of thing. It seemed to be more, I don't know, about how it changed people's thinking and how it was affecting the world in general. So, the discussions were a little bit more academic. They were a little deeper. When we talked about Flickr, we talked about it with great fondness, tagging and what it meant to have a default state of public on a photo, where photo libraries used to just sort of rest on your laptop or in your email, or even if they went online, they were like, Kodak had the site, but everything was private and you only shared with people. And Flickr was like, mind-blowing revolution. Hey, let's make them public so that everybody could see. And there were people asking questions like, well, why would you even do that? Well, it doesn't really matter, right? But it did matter, and that's what started to change things. And when sites like Twitter came out in 2006, people scratched their heads again and were like, why would anybody care what you were having for lunch? But turned out lots of people ended up caring what you were having for lunch. And I remember, and I was telling George that, you know, I remember as, you know, when it started and, you know, how it, we looked at the world in this way that was so hopeful and how it was going to change everything. And then design decisions start being made where some of us that were originally on Twitter, when Twitter had no vowels, many people will remember that, when those were on Twitter in the beta version that had these big ideas and the way that Twitter could revolutionize the way that we connect as human beings, like, it started to shift because these design decisions were being made. And so George said, I know what we should do. We should do a movie. We should do a documentary and get people together and talk about this stuff, because he's right. There's like so much. There's a wealth of knowledge and history, and you know, when we read history books and when we paint historical eras, we usually paint it with like a really high level idea of how things change, and we forget the nuances and why things tipped the way they have. And I think what's happening right now is I don't know. I'm sad about it. I'm sad how it's almost like the big cultural whale has come up and swallowed us little plankton and are taking us back down to the depths again. So yeah, it should be said. It should be known that it started out as something with a lot of meaning, and it might still, you know, it might still maintain. There is a revolution, and things have changed, and ideas have shifted, but they've also been co-opted, assimilated in a lot of ways that it would be good to talk about.